Hi there, everyone. It's Chara here, and I am hoping that you can hear me. I didn't hear anything when I started that, but perhaps I'm listening for the for the wrong thing. So as usual, I'm going to give it a couple of just a minute or two, just to make sure that anybody who wants to jump on is on. I am currently on holidays. I'm outside of Australia, and I am in Greece. You can't really see out the window behind me because the sun, I think, is coming from there, but no, you can't really see anything out there. But I am currently in Greece, and it's not evening here. It is in the middle of the day, but I'm really excited because this is a subject, of course, that I love, and I'm excited to be sharing some of this stuff with you, and perhaps, I don't know, perhaps sharing some of the nice weather as well. I'm really hoping it's nice over where you are. Anyway, so what will happen, just as normal, I try to keep these things kind of short, and I'm going to take about 5 minutes, talk about what I want to talk about, share the information that I want to share with you guys about eating Ayurveda, a very juicy topic and something that you probably have even started hearing a little bit about, if not from me, from other health and wellness folks, or even on television shows and various things like that. There's been discussion about it, so I want to share a little bit of that. I'm in Corfu. Thank you. Wholefood Collective. I don't know if that's Kate or who that is. I am in Corfu in Greece. So I want to share with you some of the basics so that you've got that, and then we'll open it up for questions. And I've actually even had a few questions that have come in ahead of time, so I'll go ahead and share those answers. Hello, everyone. If you're here, do say hello, because I'm excited to see some folks on. I know it's evening where you guys are, regardless. So we've got enough folks on. I'm going to dive in to this, and I think you guys had some information shared with you about what I was going to be talking about today. The broader category obviously is eating Ayurvedic, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what that is and how you do it. So let's dive in. So first of all, it's really important. We hear a lot of different things about, different types of diets. There's the paleo diet, and there's a vegetarian diet, and a raw diet, and there's keto now, and all these different things. And I think one of the most important things for you guys to understand about Ayurvedic eating is that Ayurvedic eating is not a diet. It's not going to be the same for every person. There may be some similarities, and I'll dive into what that means. But Ayurveda recognizes that eating is about feeding our wholeness, right? It's about accepting and understanding that who we are is kind of more than just this body that needs to be fed, and that everything that we do eat, whether that's stuff that comes in anything that comes in through our senses, is connected to everything else. So, we've had this experience before, right? Where you're maybe not feeling so good one day for a particular reason. Maybe you've heard some bad news, or you've had something going on at work that can impact your ability to digest the food that you eat physically. And so we have to, in order to understand about eating Ayurvedic, we have to expand our understanding of what eating itself means, and we have to get our arms around the idea that we need to feed three things in particular. We need to feed our mind, and food for the mind is inspiration, right? It's thoughts and ideas and emotions that incite kindness and acceptance and joy and generosity and love. We also need to feed our souls. Feed food for the soul. It reveals what you're committed to in your life. Food for the soul is why you get up in the morning, right? It's laughter and quiet moments. And for me, it's been this wonderful holiday here with my family, my husband and my 2 kids. It's adventure and connection. And then food for the body, and we'll dive deeper into this. So food for the body is a partnership. I love this idea that being a partnership, because I don't think that we always think that way, right? We give and we get. It's this relationship, this give and take relationship, that it changes as we change and as the world around us changes through the day and through the month and through the year. And that's a really important Ayurvedic concept. But like a really good relationship, we know that we found the right food for the body if it makes you feel light, and it makes you feel strong and energized and supported. And so it's really important for us to start thinking more, or for us to start engaging more on all levels with the food that we eat, to better understand how it's feeding us. Often we just kind of make our choices for food based on what we're told about how it should make us feel. And so Ayurveda really wants us to embrace that we have a responsibility to tune in to ourselves and to tune into how the choices that we make for food are impacting our overall well-being, mind and body. And so I have, and I'll dive a little deeper. So I've recently written a book called Eat Like You Love Yourself. And to me, Eat Like You Love Yourself, this idea, this mantra, I talk about mantras all the time. It's a really simple way of encapsulating what Ayurvedic eating means. And so I've got 3 rules for eating like you love yourself. And for all intents and purposes, these are the rules that kind of define what Ayurvedic eating is. So the first rule is to eat seasonal, right? And I've talked a little bit about this before in other contexts about self-care and various things. So making sure that the foods that you're eating are right for the season. And typically that's going to be what shows up in your farmer's market, what's available for you in the season. And when we're not talking about produce, we're also talking about foods whose qualities are conducive to maintaining balance in the season. So for example, we're currently moving through spring. We're about in the middle of the spring, kind of heading off into the summertime. And I've talked a little bit about spring stuff before, but just to give you a sense, the sorts of foods that you're going to want to be eating in the springtime are things that are going to be light, warm, and dry. So when I talk about eating seasonal, I mean choosing foods that are available in your farmer's market, and also about choosing foods that have the qualities that are conducive to the springtime or to whatever season that you're in. The second rule, which is really important in Ayurveda, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot, is this idea of keeping your fire burning. What does that mean? That means that we've got to ensure that our ability to digest everything, so our ability to digest not only the foods that we eat, but all of the different things that we're engaging with on a daily basis, is going to be one of the foremost things that we think about. So if you're eating only related to, let's say, it's lunchtime, so I'm just going to have some food, not really hungry, and if you really tune in, you might even notice that you're feeling a little bit heavy, or you're still feeling a little bit full from the breakfast that you ate. What your body is kind of telling you is that you haven't fully digested what you've already consumed. And so if you just pile more on top, you may actually compromise your digestion. And so when we make our choices for meals, whether it's what we eat or how much we eat, we want to consider how our digestion and elimination systems are working and ensure that we're choosing foods that are going to nourish us in a way that keeps our digestive fire burning. It keeps it strong for us, because that feeds everything that we do. It will eventually, and we're starting to hear this in research as well, right? The gut health being really important. It feeds our ability to feel strong and to feel inspired and motivated, and also light and energized, and all those things that I mentioned at the outset. And then lastly, the third one is to choose balance. And so what does that mean? Well, choose balance means coming into your decisions about what you're going to eat with an understanding of how you're already feeling, what you're already battling. The mind body it may be battling something, and by that I mean you may be experiencing a lot of stress when you come to eat. And we do this, right? We tune out, and because we're so stressed, and we just make bad choices for whatever we're going to eat. You may be coming to your meal from a place of experiencing a cold or flu. So choosing balance means choosing foods that are going to help to support you in bringing yourself back to balance. You may be dealing with, hormonal fluctuations, or I had some people asking me about just that hormonal. I'll talk about that, or I'll answer that question when we get to questions, which should be very soon. Hormonal fluctuations, you may be experiencing things like eczema or some sort of imbalance, and so you're wanting to ensure that the foods that you are choosing are going to support you in reestablishing the balance. So those are the tips that I'll give you about eating Ayurvedic. You're wanting to eat seasonal, You're wanting to keep your fire burning, focus on eating either the right amounts or the right types of food that are going to improve or bolster your digestion as opposed to weigh it down. And the last one is you're going to want to choose for balance. You're going to want to eat foods or choose foods that are going to create a sense of balance in the mind and the body. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps as just some simple rules. I expand on all of this stuff and recipes and all sorts of great stuff in the book that I've written, which is called Eat Like You Love Yourself, A Modern Guide to Ayurvedic Cooking and Living. And I will give you guys some information about that. And I'm happy to do some more talking and some more sharing in the group about that as we move forward and when I come off holidays as well. But let me dive into I've got a couple of questions that someone asked, and then if you have any questions, please go ahead and put those through, and I'll go ahead and try to get those answered for you as well. So we had some that came in ahead of time, and the first one was regarding hormone imbalances and what types of foods are the best foods to eat for, I think it was estrogen dominance and progesterone, like a lack of progesterone or low progesterone. The interesting thing about Ayurveda, and this is what I kind of talked about or touched on at the outset, is that everyone's individual experience of these things is going to be different. And what that points to is the idea that everybody potentially comes to this state of estrogen dominance or whatever it is from a different causes. And so what we try to do is we try to treat those causes. And so it can be a little difficult to give you just a stock standard general answer. Typically, we would treat something like that. But again, that first thing that I said was a little bit of a disclaimer because it could be slightly different for you. But typically, we would look at including foods that are similar to the sorts of things that we would have in the spring. So that are light, that are dry, and that are warm. We'd want to stay away from or avoid dairy, too much dairy. You're wanting to include a lot of leafy greens and bitter foods into your diet. Those are always really good. And you're also wanting to ensure, as I mentioned before, that the foods that you're eating, whatever it is that you're eating, are not heavy in fats, and that are cooked and that are nice and warm. That can typically help. But again, to answer that, very more specifically for you, I'd have to know a little bit more about the situation that you're currently dealing with. So I hope that helps. To give you some sense from an Ayurvedic standpoint, the estrogen dominance tends to be looked at as a kapha imbalance. And so if you wanted to do some further research into estrogen dominance, you might look up what you might do for a kapha imbalance. And then the other question I had was about eczema and what's the best thing to eat for if you've got eczema, if you're addressing eczema. My answer is going to be similar. Eczema, sure. Someone said, considered a dry food. So dry foods are going to be, I often cite things like popcorn, even though that's kind of weird, but you have to start kind of getting your mind around what might be dry. There's certain vegetables, apples are considered dry. There's certain, just about all leafy greens are actually considered dry. And if you want to try to understand from your own physical experience about what a dry food is, it has this drying quality to it. So if you think about when you eat something like raw spinach, it has a bit of an astringency, it dries, it has this drying out effect. That's the kind of feeling that you're thinking about. Pomegranate, same thing. And I have whole lists of all of these things related to their particular qualities in the cookbook, in the Eat Like You Love Yourself book. So yeah, I hope that helps a little bit. Again, the sort of Ayurvedic eating kind of asks us to shift our thinking a little bit and it asks us to really interact with our food, right? To taste it, to better understand its qualities, and to better understand kind of how it makes us feel. And so getting back to, I hope that helps, getting back to the question about eczema. Well, eczema, as I mentioned, it's a similar answer in part because eczema can actually show up differently for depending on who you are. So there's the dry and there's the kind of flaky kind of eczema. And we would treat that with a certain type of food. We would treat that with foods that are warm and foods that are, that have some, what we would call unctuousness to it. So some oily qualities to it. There's the eczema that might be a little bit inflamed or kind of oozing, and we would treat that with foods that are a little bit drier and that are cooler. And then there's the eczema that is really itchy, but also a little bit, sorry, we're diving in a little deep here. We would a little bit itchy and maybe a little bit oozing as well, and we would treat that with foods that are warm and dry and that are a little bit lighter. So unfortunately, and I hope that this kind of helps you guys also to just embrace that Ayurveda really is about the individual, and it's about us learning ourselves, us paying attention to what we're dealing with, how that makes us feel, and us paying attention to the foods that we're eating and the situations that we're experiencing as well, because there's these subtle characteristics of things that actually impact and can help bring us back to balance in ways that we never thought about. And if it sounds complicated, I really want you to understand that it isn't. It really just asks us to tune in, asks us to pay attention. And that can be really fun too, because for me, I often characterize Ayurveda, or my experience of learning it and teaching it and living it, as this constant experience of light bulb moments where you eat something and all of a sudden you feel a certain way, or you interact in a certain, with a certain type of people, or you calm down, or you put yourself in certain environments, and all of a sudden you understand why this makes you feel better because of the characteristics of it. So were there any other questions out there? Those are the two that came in advance. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And if you come up with something even after this, you can feel free to put it into the comments, and I will do my best to get it answered for you. But I will give it a couple of minutes just to see and see if there's anything else I could tell you about Ayurvedic eating. I'm trying to keep it kind of encapsulated so that you guys can get just a little punch of information that you can do something with, because sometimes overdoing it doesn't help. It just kind of overloads you. So I would love to know, what are people eating right now? Are you visiting your farmers markets? Are you paying attention and working with the foods that are in season and that are available where you are? Because that is one of the keys to all of this, really. And it's such an easy way to eat in a way that is healthy for you. And the beautiful thing is it's something that a lot of health and wellness folks preach. And in my mind, Ayurveda kind of gives us a sense for kind of why it's really important and how we can apply it to, or how it makes sense for things like the different types of issues that we might be experiencing in the season. All right, so it's about from over here, it looks like it's about almost 20 after. And so I will wrap this up. I do hope that this has been useful for you. And again, if there's any questions that you have about Ayurveda or about eating in general, or about the foods that you're eating and how they may or may not be supporting you, I am always happy to answer those. And I will be sharing more information about my book, which is a wonderful primer for folks who are beginning to learn more about eating Ayurveda. It's set out by seasons, and it can really give you some insights into what to choose and also what to cook during the season. So as always, I just want to thank you guys for your time tonight. And I look forward to getting back to Australia, and I will be back in the month of November with another session to give you a little more insight into Ayurveda and how you can actually use it in your life and in your kitchen. All right, take care, everybody. Until then, bye-bye, namaste.